I guess we should introduce all the outlaws then for people who don't know us, which is probably like 99% of you out there. I see that we have 4 pages worth of people in
I was just scrolling through
Zoom. So we won't have everybody here introduce themselves. That might take us the whole time period, but we will introduce ourselves. I'm Amos. And then the great voice that was also speaking.
I'm Anna. I don't know what else you want to say. Yeah,
I'm Anna. What's your favorite condiment, Anna?
Condiment? Ooh, that's a tough one. Chipotle mayo.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good choice. Solid.
Nice.
Over to
Solid
you,
choice. Just got to drink his coffee first.
Yeah.
You ready, Keathley?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Chris. How's it going? I'm happy to be here. And
what's your favorite condiment, Chris?
Oh, my favorite condiments.
Yeah. Dropping the ball here, Chris.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Wait, hang on. Is it like just generally or with fries?
There was not a
or
lot
like
of
with a thing.
Direction. The question was, a little bit open ended.
I'm gonna say mayonnaise. You know what? I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just gonna say mayonnaise.
All right.
Dukes it is. All right. And then we have the newest outlaw that if anybody listens, they've probably heard him on the last few episodes. And just a few minutes ago, I was going to count the minutes, but it's been a little bit, gave a talk here. You gonna hop in there, Sean?
Yeah. Hi, Sean. You probably heard me talk already if you've been to the conference. Probably won't be too much. My favorite condiment, probably whole grain mustard.
Oh, solid.
Amos, you didn't answer the question. What's your favorite condiment?
Yeah, what's your favorite condiment, Amos?
Well, now that Chris said fries, all I can think of fries, and it would be apple cider vinegar.
To go with fries?
My fries. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So good.
Is this a thing that everybody knows about that I just haven't heard of and behind?
Only people of class and substance.
Oh. I see. Throwing it down. I love it.
So we got the small talk out of the way.
Yeah. So what are we talking about?
For me, doing the live episodes that we do, the greatest thing is getting audience interaction and letting the audience kind of guide where we go. Or we can just ask Chris what thing doesn't exist this week. But so instead, I would love to get people from the audience just what have you been learning about, questions that you have for us. Like if you want to know what we ate for breakfast today, we'll fill you in. We do have one question in the Q&A that we can start out with. I think I'll let the question asker ask the question if they want to unmute and ask. Adolfo, I hope I said your name correctly.
Yes. Thanks and congrats for your podcast. And what's your favorite thing about having a podcast?
That's a great question.
It's a tough question. It's real personal. For me, I think getting to talk to everybody and every week I get to talk to these fun people and learn new things. My goal in life is to be the dumbest person in the room, and I get to do that every week now. And then, when I go out and meet at conferences and I run into people, it's a lot easier to introduce yourself whenever there's a large number of people who already know who you are, even if they don't like you. It doesn't matter. They already know who you are. And
that's a compliment, Amos. You're assuming people listen to the podcast.
Well, I think he means in the same way that if somebody uses BI or Emacs, they'll tell you because you'll find out because they'll just inform you. In the same way, if you have a podcast, I think a big part of that is that you tell people that you have a podcast. So I think that's maybe what Amos is talking about. He just I've seen him at conferences. He goes up and he's like, I'm Amos, I have a podcast here, check it out. And he hands people a link.
Well, the Lazy River QR code a couple years ago, right? Yeah, he totally organized a thing to get people together to promote, and also talk about the podcast, etc. So I see it.
How about you all?
I think echoing a little bit of your sentiments, Amos. I think like being able to have like really interesting conversations consistently. I think the thing that I've loved specifically about our podcast, not just having a podcast, is we have created the space to really talk about whatever kind of feels important or whatever comes to mind. And there's not a lot of like, because we decided that we kind of want this to be like a hallway podcast where we intentionally don't do a lot of preparation or are really specific about the things we're going to talk about ahead of time. I think it's really led to some organic conversation that has been really insightful that I don't know that would have happened otherwise. And so I've really, really appreciated that. And then selfishly, like it's been really just fun getting to talk to people who I really enjoy, you know, my friends that I really enjoy getting to hang out with. And so having that be a regular thing has been awesome.
How about Sean? Sean, you're new.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been on a few episodes so far, but I think what's been really rewarding for me is being able to talk to folks about things that I feel like are important, who aren't my coworkers, and like, you know, getting their perspective has been really helpful for me, and being able to share my perspective. Sometimes it's like, you know, if you're fighting against you know, people's biases within your own organization, and you can't like share a particular opinion or thought, you know, getting someone else's perspective outside is really good.
I kind of want to add to that. Yeah. Like putting ourselves out there. I get all kinds of random messages that are like, yeah, you're right on, or you're an idiot. And I actually really love that feedback because it helps me grow a lot. And so putting ourselves out there kind of gives you some craziness. You get to make frenemies all the time. So that's fun.
That is very true.
Chris knows all about frenemies. So how about you, Chris? What's your favorite part?
Oh, I have so many snarky answers. You know, like I get to tell people I have a podcast. I think the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to also have a book you're working on, and then you use and then like a blog. And so you use the blog to promote the podcast, which promotes the book, which promotes back to the blog. You know, it's sort of cyclical in that way. Becomes an Ouroboros of hype. But I think legitimately, like my favorite parts of it have been the escape of like walking away from the like something that's either frustrating in my work or something that's frustrating me about the community or something that's frustrating me about stuff, you know, and just like this safe space to like come and like talk to my friends about it and like work through those sorts of things. And this place where we don't necessarily have to have a lot of we don't put expectations on ourselves about this stuff. You know, little things like the quality of the content or the editing of the podcast. Like we don't, you know, we have never put those sorts of pressures on ourselves. And I think it's led to this place where like we end up having the conversations that we want to have because of that. And that's been very rewarding. And that's something I've always really appreciated. So that's probably the best part. Yeah,
I agree.
So
we have a question that's, go ahead, Amos.
No, go for it.
No.
It's you, Anna, just go.
Okay. Well, I was going to say we have another question. I can't see who posted it, but it was along the lines of the podcast.
Fabian?
Fabian. Oh, yeah.
Do you want to unmute and ask?
I can. So do you guys have like the worst episode ever that completely went out of control because it was like such a contentious topic?
Yeah.
Chris is nodding away.
There's at least two I can think of that never aired.
Oh, they were that bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it got that bad. Oh, but then is not live, right? Oh, you guys are mean.
Yeah, that's very true. There were a couple that about 20 minutes in, we're like, we can't release this.
We can't do this. Yeah, we can't release this.
Yeah. And sometimes those we say that and then we release it anyway. But there were a couple. There was one that we listened to a few times, and like the third time of listening through it, I was like, man, we can't put this out there.
Yeah, there was. There was one that was really like, I think it was all of us in a pretty, we were all dealing with our own individual, like, I don't know, like just stuff, like personal stuff. And it was super, there was one of them that was like super negative. Like we all came out just basically like, everything sucks. The world sucks. like what's even the point? You know, like it was like very nihilistic. And that we were sort of like, yeah, let's, you know, I mean, there's been a couple of times where somebody has been like, we've gotten on here and then we've just been like, guys, I'm having a terrible day. And we just like stop recording and we just talk and hang out. Mm-hmm. And then we don't release that either, obviously. So there's been a couple of those. None of those like necessarily, I don't know if any of those count. The one for me, probably the most negative one, or like the low point for me was the one where I finally pushed Jose over the edge and he forced him to quit Ecto. Because I was like critical of some decisions that they'd made. And I like, in my mind, it was in the kind of the early, it was like one of the early episodes of the show. And I was still in this mode of like, no one's listening to this. So I can like say whatever. And you don't realize like the impact that you're having.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me personally, that was one of them. And that was a real low point of, and I would say like a turning point of my own sort of like being very cognizant of the weight that like just words can carry for people. And like kind of to some degree how like, you know, if you're doing a lot of open source maintenance, you're really walking like the razor's edge of burnout, like kind of all the time. And it doesn't take much for somebody to like push you over the edge of that. So that was probably the low point for me.
Yeah, but it was like an experience which you took, and then probably you won't do that again, right? So
yeah, it wasn't, that's the goal.
Well,
yeah,
discussing is one thing, right? But yeah, we don't want to push people over the edge.
Yeah,
I think COVID makes it difficult, right? I don't know. Have you seen that COVID makes it a different conversation as it was before? Did it change?
I think that the feedback changed, right? So the things that you could say before people were kind of, well, especially at the beginning when people were stuck and felt stuck and couldn't get out of their homes and things, is that the feedback that we would get, there were things that you could say like before COVID that would be found as funny, and we would intend for it to be a joke. And then I would get cornered online, or when we first started going back and meeting people in person, I got cornered a couple times, and it was like, hey, you guys said this. And I was like, I thought that was clearly a joke. I'm really sorry to have offended you. I'll try not to do it in the future. But
you
also
got cornered by one of the Phoenix core team for something I said.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I answer for Chris a lot.
Oh no, I think I said something like, I don't get context, and like then one of the core teams like, I got a bone to pick with you. Like,
I think they go to me because, you know, Chris is way taller and has dark hair and is kind of intimidating. And I have like bright orange hair and look like Opie Taylor, if you all know who that is. And so people are like, oh, Amos is probably nice. I can go attack him.
And the way Amos will respond is going to be really nice. Yes, totally. Not that Chris would respond in a nice way, but you were so nice, Amos.
So yeah, I don't really have an episode, but I have like moments like that. And I think, I don't know if that's ever going to go away. I think if you're speaking, you're always going to have somebody who doesn't like what you have to say. And you just try really hard to be clear that like, this is a learning experience for us too. And as we're going through things, we are not always going to disagree. Like I've argued with Chris and Anna before. But also how we release our episodes is really raw. Like what you see is what you get most of the time. It has to be pretty bad for us to be like, we're not going to release this. And a lot of times it has to get personally bad. So like, because we're so raw and open, whenever we do record, when we get into personal things, sometimes it's like, maybe I can't release that thing about how I'm really bummed out right now. Like we don't want to put that out there because we want people to be happy when they listen and not be like, oh, you're super struggling, and then I know that like that's a good thing too, is like people hear that from you and they can connect, but it can go bad. Like you can get really negative and drag other people with you, so we try to avoid that.
We actually we didn't really do a good job of this, but early on in like the epidemic or pandemic stuff, we talked a lot about like trying to not talk about coronavirus like on the show, and then we failed like repeatedly, but we kind of kept like telling ourselves like we should not do that, and we made a point of like trying to not as much as possible, because we sort of felt like the reason you listen to this is not our opinion on the world. It's to some degree like I don't know how healthy this is, right? But when I listen to I have plenty of podcasts that I listen to all the time. And I listen to them because essentially I have a parasocial relationship with those people. And like, it's not necessarily healthy, but like, I think that there's something, if you're aware of it, I don't know. I go back and forth on like how net negative that probably is for you. But like, there's plenty of shows like that I listen to. And it's just because I just want to hear like these people talk. Like I just want to hear their voices. Like I just want to hear them hanging out and laughing and stuff like that. And to some degree, it's a little bit of an escape. And so we tried to keep kind of like bigger stuff out of it, but not always with great success.
Yeah.
And we also talked about trying to keep the community going and together at the beginning of that. And I think that those discussions were really good. I know that we're asked about what the worst ones are, but I thought that those were a good non-technical thing that we talked about.
I agree. I mean, I think we did have some really interesting conversations about like how the community has shifted or needed to shift, right, during pandemic, or how how things have changed, and like what were the good things that came out of that, et cetera, et cetera. So there were some positives. But I think to both of your points, I think like trying to put something out that like would hopefully at least be something positive, or some people could take something positive from it, even if it was just listening to us talk about what Chris's kids have, like something funny or something interesting, or like
how much NIM sucks.
Or Keathley's 1,000th very strong opinion on a particular thing. But yeah, but hopefully people would get something out of it, which is why we were careful about not releasing things where we were like, oh, we're just not even like releasing anything that is going to bring any kind of like positivity, etc. Do we have other questions? I haven't been paying attention, but
I don't know. Sean's going to have to learn how to get himself in here.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start.
Sean,
I'll start by injecting a question. How about that? So, Sigu, do you want to ask your question on the air?
Oh yes, it's a little straightforward question. So, since the introduction of NX, the project in Elixir, there has been a lot of experimental projects, toy projects all around. So I'm just wondering, what are some of the interesting, let me use the word interesting, what are some of the most interesting projects you've seen that that have been implemented using NX so far? It's more of an opinion on.
So this isn't a public project. So I'm trying to think of how I can word this. I had somebody talk to us about this, but they were using NX with some OCR stuff and trying to do fraud detection on paperwork that is often fraught with fraud because it has to do with contracts. So that was pretty, I can't say much more about that, but it was a neat idea that I thought, and I really loved that they were talking about using Elixir to do that instead of jumping on to like the existing solutions like Python. They were like, no, we really think that Elixir is the way to go for the future on this. And that, I don't know, it felt good to be like, oh, I'm in that community. Thank you. Even though I've played with NX, I've done the toy project stuff, but nothing like what they were doing.
Yeah, we actually had our KC Elixir had 2 different presentations. One was me and one was Jeremy. No. Anyway, trying to convert a pure Elixir ray tracer to run on NX. It was pretty hard. Not successful other than the basic math. So yeah, that's not shipping anytime soon. But it was fun.
Chris, Anna?
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything? I don't really have anything in mind.
I haven't been paying. I'll be honest. I'm at a new job now, and I am not paying attention to anything. So I'm just like heads down right now, deep in the tank on some stuff.
Are you allowed to talk about what you're working on?
I cannot talk about any of it, but I will talk about it soon because we're doing some pretty sick stuff. And I can literally share nothing about it, but I'm super excited. And I think it's probably one of the most interesting applications of Elixir. Assuming we get to that point, I think it'll be one of the most interesting like use cases. Yeah, that's what I can say. That's all I can say. And I'm writing a lot of NIM, and I have so many thoughts. Most of them.
NIM's not NX, Chris.
No, I know, but I really want to talk about how just completely mediocre NIM feels. It's fine. It's totally fine language. That's not C.
Yeah,
we don't want to turn this into one of the episodes that we regret.
No, I know. I actually think it's
not
fine.
A good idea.
It's totally fine. It's totally reasonable. It's just, whatever. It's more about me.
Follow up on that. Just following up on that. Following the response, it seems like there are not a lot of interesting stuff. Now, do you think it's because traditionally those who are in Erlang and Elixir are not so much from the machine learning community and AI-based community? Is this the reason as to why we do not have a lot of just people jumping into it? And if that's the case, then what do you think is the best way to maybe port people over, if that's the case?
I don't know. You're asking a lot of people. Oh boy. It's a long road to hoe is how I'll say it. It's going to be a long road to hoe. And the problem is like everyone, if Python was too slow, people would have stopped using Python, and they didn't, right? Like they are using Python now and all those libraries and all that stuff, right? And you can have an art, there's lots of, it's not a perfect ecosystem by any means. But like it has so much inertia, like just, it's like trying to push a boulder, up a hill, Sisyphus style. And it's just going to be hard to get people to want to switch, right? It's got to be more compelling than it already is. Because like no one's going to necessarily convert away from Python. Like if you're a researcher and you already know Python, like what other benefit do you need? Like, Python already, which means you have access to every lib that's out there. And there's like this entire cottage industry around like building more of that stuff, and all that stuff's first class. So you have to there's no, and also like everyone else is there, right? It's like, it's like everyone else is already doing that thing too. So you're going to like reap the benefits of that. And if you're a researcher who's just in this to like research, you don't care. Like, it's not like you have some vested interest in the tool necessarily as a tool, right? Like you want answers, and this is like the quickest route to answers. And you already know all this stuff, and it would mean learning all this stuff, right? Not to say that like that can't happen. Obviously like R is a thing. adjacent to Python and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I just think like, yeah, it's going to be a long road. And the fact is, like, most Elixir people, right, are like slinging web apps. And like, those are not the same groups of people necessarily. There's plenty of crossover in like hobbyists and like people want to do that. But if you're talking about like most like researchers aren't slinging web apps, and most people slinging web apps aren't doing like heavy machine learning stuff, like as their day job, right? And that's where you learn all this stuff. So hobby is different, but I don't know. I think it's going to be, it's like you're going to have to work so much to get to parity, right? And that's it's just gonna be hard. I'm not here to like say that those are bad efforts or like not worth it or whatever. Like I love that stuff and I'm having fun playing with those things. And I will say, like, I think stuff like, Lifebook, like Lifebook has a lot of legs even outside of the whole NX ML stuff. It's just fun, it's like fun to be able to play with.
Yeah. So
yeah, in terms of getting people to make that switch, I don't know, man. Like
I think you gotta have a few early adopters have some big successes that make other people who are just starting to learn say, "Ooh, I want to use that because I saw this big success." And then you need to follow that up with an educational path for them. And I don't necessarily mean a traditional educational path. It could be university classes. It could just be online resources. Anything that gets those people watching the early adopters get a few big wins, and then they're like, "Oh, I want to jump on that train." And now we have to have a way to get them onto that train.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly important to mention that NX as a public thing is less than a year old. Like, so you think about all those machine learning things that are in Python or C++, they've been around a long time. And that's not to say that, we're trying to, or we in the Elixir community are trying to steal away mind share there. Maybe we're just trying to expand the capacity of what's available to the Beam platform, like so that it can cover more use cases. In past work situations, I've kind of pushed for, well, we have these things that are established that are in other languages, and they do those things well, but we need some coordination component. Like, that's a good place where Erlang and Elixir can fit in, right? But this is sort of taking the next step and saying, let's not just be glue for those things, but like, let's be a platform that you can use those things on. And that like expands the viability of the Beam as something that people can use in their day-to-day. And I think that's overall good, even if it doesn't have immediate adoption.
And some of the Python stuff is a real slow burn. It's, like, you think about how long NumPy has existed as a thing. And like, even people who wrote Python now close to like 8 years ago, 10 years ago or whatever, like, knew about NumPy, but might not have ever even installed it. Right? Like, that stuff is,
I think all this
it's
stuff
a very specific
takes
slow
a long
burn.
Time. Exactly.
And if you don't all of a sudden get an explosion of machine learning people, like, who are all pouring effort into that stuff, then who knows what the adoption of that would be like, right? Like, it probably wouldn't change, right? It would probably be split between like R and whatever, and people doing statistical computing and MATLAB and Octave and all this stuff. But it's like, because all of a sudden you have this explosion of other people, then it gets this like crazy adoption.
I think another way to push adoption too is if you can build tools, like not the libraries themselves, but like things that can help you get started, help you get things moving along. If you can build those tools and make that like barrier of jumping in lower. So if you can build tools that make our barrier lower than jumping in as Python's barrier, then we will push the Beam community in that direction and get more people coming in.
I also want to add that like if you're excited about this and you're working on it and you can find people that are excited that will work on it with you, just because even starting these kinds of efforts and maintaining these efforts and pushing these efforts forward solo is really hard, and burnout is very real, as we talked about, a little bit about open source. So if you really want to do something that's going to be sustaining, you can find other people that are also psyched to try and do that. Helps bolster the effort.
I hope that answered it. Thanks, Sigu. We have some more questions.
Bruce, how much time do we have?
I don't know. I'm just going to keep talking until I see Barbara going like this. That's what she told me the other day. So, Bruce, other Kansas City native, you want to hop in and ask your question?
Sure. What topics are you looking forward to next year? Did you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm actually really interested in seeing a lot of the companies that I've seen growing with Elixir and the problems that they run into and how they're solving them. That always interests me. Like, how do you I'm going to pick on Sean because he just gave a talk that was all about, taking this big monolithic application and breaking it apart and solving those problems. And that's where I get interested. Is I love to see like, what questions did you ask yourself? What answers did you come up with? And as our community grows, and seeing like the Erlang libraries and the people talking around the problems that they're seeing there, or like the new Beam languages too. I'm all over the place, I guess, for the next year. I just see there's a lot of growth in the entire Beam community. And I think in the past couple years, I think we've tightened that community too, instead of being like, oh, here's the LFE group and here's the Erlang group and here's the Elixir group. We've tightened that bond and we've all started to help each other. And I think Erlang Ecosystem Foundation has helped with that. And so I'm ready to see how that moves forward in the next year. And as we can all come out and be a part of each other's lives in more than just these little video screens. Because I think we got tighter together as a community at the same time that we all had to separate. And so seeing where we go now that we're a tighter community and then being able to be together, like that's what I'm excited about.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I'm really excited about seeing what happens now that people can actually be in the same space. Like Zoom has done a great job, but there's something about being able to have conversations. And also, like, let's be real, there's no good like virtual whiteboard unless someone's found one, please let me know. But like being able to have conversations in the same room, right? Being able to share ideas in the same room and see what comes out of that. I'm really excited to see what happens because I think there is something there that you can't capture. You can't capture.
Scribble together.
Mm-hmm.
Scribble together. That's the virtual whiteboard that I found that kind of works.
Kind of, right?
Kind of works.
Yeah. But I'm curious to see what happens and what comes out of this next year once people can kind of come back inside.
Chris to Sean's just looking forward to holding his cat.
His cat is so cute.
I'm excited to learn more about cats. Now I know plenty about cats. They rule my life. Things are interesting to me. I'm interested in things, and maybe it's kind of related to the NX question. How we can expand the ecosystem at the edges. I was really inspired by Benoit's talk about building an edge computing platform with Erlang. I think it's a fantastic idea. Doing things that are portable, run anywhere type of stuff. Of course, Peter Alvaro's talk, he's always inspiring, about a data focused operating system rather than a process focused. That was really, really awesome. I'm always watching the distributed systems space, given where I came up from. And I know that I'm kind of going off the rails about Erlang and Elixir here, but there's great stuff by Martin Kleppmann doing work on loosely coordinated data systems. So he's developing new kinds of CRDTs. He's developing proofs about sorts of loosely coordinated systems. It's really exciting stuff. So, you know, I try to keep my finger on research for sorts of things that I might be able to do in my day job. And that's kind of fun. If you ever want to get papers, just talk to me. I have plenty of papers for you to read.
Chris, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I will say none of my stuff is very Elixir or Erlang focused at the moment. I mean, it is tangentially, but none of it is like specific to that. But I am personally learning a whole lot more about I guess resiliency engineering, a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, just like lots of other stuff. Going back to lots of things I haven't done in about a decade. And that's been really fun. And yeah, safety critical stuff. And yeah, I'm trying to dodge around how much I'm actually allowed to say. But there's lots of learnings there. No, lots of learnings there. And I'm very excited about all that. But none of that's really necessarily specific to Elixir, I would say. I guess like there's more of those topics like sort of floating around like the Erlang world, and so it's nice to see other folks working on that as well.
We got another question, probably a quick one from I'm probably going to say this wrong. Rowenton, do you want to unmute? I know that you were, your video disappeared for me, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you gonna, I don't know what you call it, syndicate or get yourself onto the Clubhouse platform? Your podcast?
I have an account on there and I've turned it on a couple times. I speak some Irish and I get on there and talk to people in Irish, but have not really talked much about tech on there myself. I don't even know if do any of you have accounts on there?
I've tried it. Yeah, I do. It's not something we talked about for no good reason. We just haven't.
I guess that's it. There you go.
Maybe we'll talk about it. We'll see.
Maybe.
Always possibility. I don't know what else. Anything else, or should we? I know we're supposed to end at 1, and it's a little after, so I don't know if we should wrap.
We have Adolfo has one more question.
One more question.
I think he's listened to an old episode and he's trying to bring it up. So, Adolfo, you want to hop on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We are almost finishing, so a little bit of fun comments. So, is GitHub Copilot going to leave us all unemployed?
I think that's bait for you, Keathley.
I think it is.
I'm not going to dignify that with a response. No, the thing is garbage. It's good too. It's good that it's such garbage because, like, it's good that it's not going to do material harm to the world or anything like that. Freaking whatever.
Yeah.
For those of you that we had an episode where we all did, but Keathley had some especially strong feelings about GitHub Copilot.
Has anybody else followed the thread on how they they ban certain words from coming up in their it's like baked, but it's baked into the client, so you can grab it. They've got these like hashed words and they compare against a hash or whatever, and then somebody reversed them all using like a rainbow table to figure out what words they're banning, and it's real funny. Which is to say terrifying. But yeah, it's a pretty easy to find thread.
Are they banning GPL? Did they ban GPL?
They had to specifically ban Quake I had to specifically ban the like Quake fast square root inverse square root algorithm or whatever, because that kept showing up. What a friggin' toy. It's so stupid.
It's not even a thing. Yeah, I don't think that right now you can replace the creativity and ingenuity that it takes to build a real system, especially a complex system with glorified Markov lists. Yeah, I don't know. It cracks me up. I've seen people use it a few times as like a demonstration, and I've watched it also produce some really terrible code.
My favorite is still this. It's somebody, there's a like, YouTuber bro who is like showing it off or whatever, and he's like, this is amazing, this is gonna like put all programmers out of it. It's like, now what are we gonna use? Unironically was like, now we can't use LeetCode anymore for like interviews, like what are we gonna even do? And I was like, oh gosh. Like he's like showing how he's like, okay, I'm gonna do this algorithm, and he totally generates the wrong algorithm, and he looks at it and he's like, see, this is amazing. And it's like, yeah, but it's like wrong, bro. Like, and it's the same algorithm you just generated where you said it did the opposite thing. Like, whatever. So like, yeah, no, I don't think it's going to replace human beings anytime soon. But 1 million views on YouTube. So there you go. Worth it.
And
hashtag.
I think it also raises the question, if it's got this huge corpus of code that's reading from, and you need to use Copilot to do your job, are you using the right tool at all? Like, because, hey, I need some like mathematical algorithm I've never coded. Why don't I just type it in and like go Copilot, fill it in for me? Maybe I should have done the research and like looked up the code that I should reuse that someone else wrote and that's correct. So like there's all sorts of like fringe problems that don't even have to do with like the veracity of the code that it's producing or the provenance of it.
Yeah, if you don't understand even what's coming out of it, how do you know it's right in the first place?
There's also a really great like paper. I mean, it's on archive, right? So like take that as it is, right? But there's a really great archive paper where somebody was explaining like all the bugs that now are being produced by Copilot and like all the security vulnerabilities. It's the jokes literally write themselves, much like the code.
Perfect. I see Robert walking around over there on the stage, and he's looking sharper than any of us, I think. And Robert, it's really cool that you put that together in person and had people come in. So thank you for all your hard work.